Namaste and Namaskar, and welcome to the Temple of Kriya Yoga. My name is Abhinanda, and the noon meditation today is entitled Embracing the Opportunity of This Lifetime. Before we begin the discourse and the meditation, I just like to wish you all well as we continue to navigate these very, very uncertain times. And I'd like to begin with a prayer. If you would just assume a good meditative posture, perhaps doing the resurrection breath, a double exhalation over the left shoulder, and then returning the head to center. May the infinite Lord of life, love, and laughter bless you at this moment. May each and every cell of your being be healed, healthy, and whole. May your entire mind-body complex be filled to overflowing with vim, vigor, and vitality. May you truly find that which you seek, surely, swiftly, and most harmoniously. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. And so the talk today, embracing the opportunity of this lifetime. We've really been given tremendous access to the deep perennial wisdom of human existence. And we have this access to teachings that have been handed down from generation to generation, from teacher to teacher. And these discoveries that we have access to, these teachings, were hard won. They were won by our teachers and our teachers' teachers, by their sacrifice and their practice. And it's incumbent on us now to make the journey. That's what's called of us on the spiritual path, that we have to make the journey. We have these teachings, and our teachers have shown us the path, but we have to make the journey ourselves. They can't do it for us. And so this sort of, perhaps without saying, it implies the importance of our formal practice of meditation, of observing the yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, samadhi of the yogic path. And of course, life is going to happen to us. It can happen and throw us off our practice. But really, life is another of our teachers. It's the great teacher. And so when we encounter obstacles on the path, it gives us this opportunity to return to the path with even greater commitment. And we're not trying to exit from this life that we're living, but really trying to live it even more deeply, even more fully, and to live it as it is rather than as something we're trying to make other than what is. Arguably, we have more time and opportunity than many practitioners of the past, even perhaps than many of our teachers and the teachers of our teachers. We think of all the pressures, the demands on our time and so forth, but we have really more access to these deep teachings of generations and generations of teachers. We have more access than perhaps our teachers before us, and we have more opportunity for deep practice than many who preceded us. Those who preceded, I think we often don't realize that their lives were often much more physically challenging than ours. Many of our teachers had difficult lives, working 15, 16 hours per day with no days off. And it's really something to contemplate that we have, despite all of our challenges, all the demands on our time, all the pressures, the pushes and pulls of our daily living, we have really more opportunity for practice than many generations of the past. We typically have 1 or 2 days off per week. Hopefully, that's the case for you, and that gives us opportunity to practice in a deeper way. Um, we may even have the opportunity to take 1 to 3 weeks of vacation per year, and that gives us opportunity to enter into retreat for 1 to 3 weeks of deep meditation, perhaps a solitary retreat where we are sitting with ourselves and making friends with ourselves and really deepening our spiritual practice. So we have these opportunities, and we have this hard-won wisdom from the teachers and practitioners of the past. However, we have to make the time for the practice. Walking the spiritual path asks things of us. It's not free. It asks things of us, and those things especially are our commitment in terms of time and effort. And this word or this term, self-discipline, that Goswami Kriyananda was very fond of invoking the idea that self-discipline is an integral part of the spiritual path. He would often talk about its importance and that it was really fundamental. It's an imperative of the spiritual path. And I wanted to share with you a writer, George Feuerstein, who's a deep practitioner, what was a deep practitioner of yoga. He's now transitioned, no longer in the body in this incarnation. Um, but he was a yogic scholar and a deep practitioner. And this is what he says: discipline, that is, the disciplining of the mind, is a fundamental prerequisite of spiritual growth. There are those who think that spiritual awakening or enlightenment is spontaneous and does not call for any action on our part. Some even regard all effort as an obstacle to enlightenment, but this does not constitute the whole truth. While it is true that the great sages all have testified that enlightenment is our innate condition, they also have always emphasized the need for proper preparation. If some practitioners, such as Ramana Maharshi, have attained enlightenment apparently without effort, we must assume that they prepared for that auspicious moment over many lifetimes. That is the traditional explanation of their instant awakening. Without the notion of rebirth, however, we are left with only one other explanation, namely that their enlightenment was simply a random occurrence, that they lucked out. If we were to accept this, we would also have to assume that spiritual effort is a waste of time. In that case, we could live as we will and hope for the best. But this is exactly what most people have opted to do, and their individual destiny is no secret to us. Instead of being free, they suffer from much unhappiness. Over the millennia, the great masters of yoga have developed numerous systems of mind training that serve the purpose of illumination or enlightenment. All are meant to remove ignorance, self-centeredness, self-delusion, greed, anger, and other similar obstacles to enlightenment. Whatever the system, each calls for two things: steady practice, abhyasa, on the one side, and dispassion, or vairagya, on the other. Practice or consistent discipline has the purpose of penetrating the ego illusion and thus revealing reality with a capital R, while dispassion is the means whereby we can rid ourselves of undesirable ballast that stands in the way of realizing true freedom and happiness. Together, practice and dispassion propel us onward to enlightenment. Step by step, we realize our true nature by shedding everything that cloaks reality. But we must actually take these steps. Thinking alone will not get us there. Only the organ of wisdom, buddhi, has the power to transform us so that our true nature can shine forth. As the masters of yoga assure us, we are always already enlightened, but this must become our immediate and continuous apperception, and that realization flowers through spiritual discipline. That from George Feuerstein. a wonderful yogic practitioner and yoga scholar. So we can say we have this deep longing to realize, to know the nature of reality, to know the nature of our true self with a capital S. But even though we have this longing, we can all be susceptible to laziness, myself included, to longing to be taken care of, to be rescued, or to be saved, to pull the covers over our heads and stay in bed. Um, Again, myself included. And and so there are some ways that we can work with these obstacles. In the Buddhist tradition, they have um, developed the four reminders. And I'd like to spend some time with the four reminders today as a means of thinking about motivating ourselves and deepening our commitment to our spiritual path. Um, so in the Buddhist tradition, these four reminders, the first is this precious life. And in this first reminder, we want to remind ourselves of the opportunity that we have for this life, not to take our life for granted, not to become complacent, or on the other hand, become overwhelmed by the drama of the life that we're living. But we want to recognize the preciousness of this incarnation, of the opportunities that we have. We don't know what the karma of the next life is going to be, but we know we have access to the teachings now, and that we have opportunities to practice now. Um, and so that's the first reminder. This precious life, this precious human birth in the Buddhist tradition. The second reminder is the sort of meditation on impermanence. Um, we want to remember that our life is finite. It's of limited duration. Our minds are such that the mind can convince us that we're setting up permanent residence here, and that is not actually true. We may, on an intellectual, on a head level, we may know that this body is going to die, but we don't really truly believe it without some very intentional work to work with the mind's ways of denial and distraction. But if we, for example, if we were to talk with someone who has received a terminal diagnosis, just a few months to live, uh, they will tell you that they didn't really ever know that their body was going to die until they received that terminal diagnosis. That they may have known intellectually that death is part of life, but they didn't really know it at a deep feeling level. And so the second reminder in the Buddhist tradition is this this idea of impermanence. And the third reminder is karma, that everything we do has an effect. It's the law of cause and effect. It's not the law of retribution. It's the law of the fact that everything that has arisen in this lifetime is coming out of causes and conditions from the past. That the patterns of the past, the habit patterns of the past and of the present that we're creating now will go into our future. So we may think, I don't need to meditate today, or I don't need to meditate tomorrow, or I can pick up meditation in a few years. And it doesn't really matter. In fact, this reminder is reminding us that it does actually matter, that what we do actually matters, and that we're setting up patterns of samskaras that will be with us into the future. The fourth and final reminder in this Buddhist tradition is the reminder of suffering. In Sanskrit, the term is dukkha, and sometimes, and I prefer this translation as unsatisfactoriness. That this world of samsara is ultimately unsatisfactory. If we can have this belief that if we try hard enough, we'll find happiness, that we can fulfill our desires, and everything will be okay in our everyday life, that tomorrow's going to be better, and that we don't need to meditate or to make a spiritual journey because we can make ourselves happy, again, in this samsaric realm. Um, and so that's the fourth reminder, the reminder of dukkha, or unsatisfactoriness. Um, and so just to review then, as long as we take life for granted, as long as we think we're going to live forever, as long as we believe that it doesn't really matter what we do, and as long as we think that we can achieve uh, happiness in the samsaric realm, then it's not really likely that we're going to uh, genuinely, sincerely commit to walking the spiritual path. The spiritual path, again, asks things of us. It asks us to sacrifice, and to make effort, and to give our time to it. So when we're clear about these four reminders, we can have an even greater motivation and commitment to taking the challenges of walking the path. Um, so it's in the Buddhist tradition, it's meditating on these four reminders that can really strengthen our motivation and our commitment. So I thought we would spend some time meditating on each of these four reminders today. And so again, if you would just assume a good meditative posture, make any adjustments you need to make to being able to sit comfortably for the next several minutes. And again, if you'd like, you can do the double exhalation over the left shoulder. And again, making any subtle adjustments to sit at attention without tension. And perhaps initially, let's just allow our attention to turn to our breath, just observing the breath. The breath is flowing in or it's flowing out. And we're not trying to control the breath. We're not trying not to control the breath. We're simply letting the breath breathe itself. And we're observing. We're a witness to the breath. And so as we feel the mind quiet, the body quiet, let's remind ourselves of the tremendous opportunities that this current life provides for us to walk the spiritual path. Through the teachings, we've heard of the possibility of fully realizing our true nature, that it's possible to realize the self with a capital S. Through the teachings, we've come to know that there's a way to work with this life and find true meaning. Think of the teachers you have encountered. How have they shown the way? How have they inspired you to see that there is a reality, the reality? Think of those who've never heard of the spiritual path. They have no idea that they can make this journey of self-realization, of the realization of their true nature, of their essence. We've come to this path, to these teachings. We have confidence that there is truth here. We have confidence that there is real insight and wisdom in this path. We can see a glimmer of light in the teachings, in walking the path. Realizing that we have the intelligence and the commitment to connect with this genuine spiritual path. We realize that we're lucky to have heard these teachings. Finally, we have the time and the energy to practice. Keeping in mind that there are many on the face of the earth who don't have this opportunity, the obligations of work, the lack of food or fresh water, perhaps living under conditions of constant fear or oppression, perhaps facing illness that prevents them from practicing. Some people live in conditions not even knowing whether they will survive the day. So this first reminder, precious human birth, doesn't simply mean a human birth, but that we have the circumstances, we have the opportunity, we can cultivate the motivation, and that we have the resources to hear the teachings and to do our spiritual practices. This first reminder is a recognition that our situation is rare among the 8+ billion people on the planet, not because we're better or special, but because of the particular karma of this specific lifetime. We have the conditions and the resources to truly engage in deep spiritual practice. So the second of the reminders, impermanence, the death of this body is real. I'd like to ask you to imagine yourself in the last hour of this life. Imagine that this is your last hour. Your time has run out. Your life is complete. And you're looking back, you're reviewing and seeing what you have done and what you have not done. Have you accomplished what you wanted? Just look back. Just take a look and see what you see. Is there any desire or longing that has been unfulfilled? And now imagine that you have 1 year to live. How will you spend that time? What will you do with that 1 year? At the end of the year, your life is complete, it's finished. What will you do with that 1 year to live? The third reminder is karma. Given that this body is going to die, that we have limited time, is what I'm doing right now what I want to be doing? Given that this body may die tomorrow or next week or next year, is what I'm doing right now really what I want to be doing? Whatever's most important to us, we need to get to it right now. Whatever we're doing right now, projecting that into the future, noticing the impacts that what we are doing will have, not only on this moment, but on our future. The self preoccupation that so many of us have, the self centeredness, project that into the future. Notice that everything that we do has an effect on our awareness, on our spiritual path. Even our addictive behaviors, whether it's alcohol or another drug, or our work addictions, these have an effect on our present, but also on our future. They are the patterns of the future. If we're kind to others, if we meditate, if we do a month-long solitary retreat, all of these have a profound effect on our present and on our future. So, this third reminder, it does matter what we do and what we leave undone. And noticing that when we sincerely walk the path, the universe can come to our assistance. When we act out of a smallness of our being, an ignorance or a selfishness or a pettiness, the universe or Perhaps you might say life can turn against us. So, again, this third reminder, making the resolution that from now on, everything we do is important. Nothing is trivial. Nothing is to be discounted as unimportant. Asking ourselves at any moment, is what I'm doing what I truly want to be doing with this finite incarnation? The fourth and final reminder, dukkha, or the teaching on suffering or unsatisfactoriness, seeing wishful thinking as delusional fantasy, realizing that expectations that I hold are never fully fulfilled, realizing that our avoidance of unsatisfactoriness is in part denial, and it's in part running away from life as it is. This fourth reminder, unsatisfactoriness or suffering, dukkha, is accepting that life never completely meets our demands, that our deepest longings for wholeness and peace can really only come from working with ourselves and walking the spiritual path. Everything else is simply partial and temporary and unsatisfying. So these four reminders, as we bring this meditation to an end, are really helpful when we encounter the obstacles on the path, our laziness, our urge to escape, our desire to be rescued or saved. We can turn to these four reminders. We can remember to value our life and our circumstances and our opportunities rather than taking this life for granted. We can embrace the opportunity of this lifetime. Shanti. So, the shift of attitude that happens when a person truly knows that they have a limited time, um, that, for example, they have a terminal diagnosis, maybe a prognosis of 3 months or a year. When you speak to people that have that experience, that diagnosis and that prognosis, they really have a different relationship to life. When we're in deep meditation, perhaps on retreat or perhaps just in our daily practice, we have a particularly deep experience of meditation. We really recognize the preciousness of this life. We really feel a gratitude, a gratefulness. But then we leave our retreat or our meditation cushion, and we lose that sense of gratitude or opportunity. Um, it's happened on many occasions for me, having done a number of solitary retreats, and really feeling a profound sense of gratitude for this life. And then within days or in some cases, maybe a few weeks, falling back into a sort of complacency. And so this practice with the four reminders can really help us with our motivation. We can strengthen our motivation and our commitment to walking the spiritual path. And we can make resolutions that we're not going to take this life for granted, that we're going to put it to the best use to realize our true nature in the nature of reality. And that we're here as much for others as for ourselves, and that we will help to relieve the difficulties and sufferings of others as we do so for ourselves. That we know that this life is limited and we're going to do something meaningful with it. That everything that we do matters, that everything has an effect now and in the future, and to use our life to benefit others and to benefit ourselves is truly a meaningful way to live this life. And we can resolve that we're not going to get caught up in wishful thinking, that we're going to seek our happiness on a deeper level, finding satisfaction, wholeness, completeness in the reality of this life rather than some wishful thought of escape or something better that's going to come tomorrow. So hearing these teachings and doing our spiritual practices really gives us the opportunity to truly make the most of this lifetime. And I hope you'll return to these four reminders from time to time to strengthen the motivation of your practice, perhaps to work with a particular obstacle that has arisen, and simply to really recognize the preciousness and the finite nature of this incarnation, and to really embrace the great opportunity that we've encountered in hearing the teachings and having the chance to work with the practices that we know can lead us to a greater sense of reality and to a realization of our true nature, of the essence of who we are and of what life is. So with that, we'll end the meditation with a closing prayer. If you would, just make, again, any subtle adjustments you need to make to your meditative posture. Perhaps once more, doing the double exhalation over the left shoulder, recentering. O great spirit, saints and sages of all the world's religions, O holy Kriya lineage, thou knowest better than we that which each and every sentient being needs. It is for this and this alone that we meditate. We beseech you to bring it into their lives, surely, swiftly, and most harmoniously. Bless us now that we might be an even greater blessing to all sentient beings. Om Shanti. 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 And once again, thank you for sharing your energies and for meditating together today. I wish you well in the coming week and hope to see you sometime soon. Namaste.